Patrick McNair, and I'm your host of This Is Real. This is Raleigh. Thank you for joining us for This Is Real. This is Raleigh. I am your host, Patrick McNair, and today's guest, I have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Dr. Tim Beck. Welcome.
Thank you.
To This Is Real. This is Raleigh.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right. So do you prefer Tim or Doctor?
It depends. My friends call me Tim.
All right.
I have a whole bunch of people call me Dr. Beck because they think I should deserve that title. I should have that title.
Yeah.
My wife just calls me Hey You, but it's a whole other story.
All right. Well, I'm not going to call you Hey You today. So I'm going to pretend like I'm your friend today because we're going to be friends for life after this. All right.
I like it.
So Tim, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Wow. What would you like to know?
So NeuroFiT.
Yeah.
What is NeuroFiT?
NeuroFit's a developmental disability center. So we work with kids who have ADD, ADHD, autism, any social, emotional, behavioral, or academic issue. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we work to solve that issue rather than just manage it. So if you look at, for example, ABA therapy, which there's nothing wrong with, ABA therapy is more about teaching you to be a better parent and teaching your child to be able to respond to that parenting.
Okay.
What we do is we actually look at what causes autism or ADHD or apraxia of speech or any of those things, and we resolve them. And so there's been a lot of research that kind of indicates that that developmental delays are caused by retained primitive reflexes, and that creates a hemispheric imbalance. So what we do is we get rid of the retained primitive reflexes. And the primitive reflex is something like rooting. For example, if you touch a baby on their cheek, they will turn their head towards that. Okay. Right? If you put your hand and your finger in their palm, yep, they will grab it. Yep. Right? And those should be gone by 2 years of age. Okay. If they're not, what happens because they're stored in the brainstem, the primitive reflexes will inhibit the ability for the brain to grow properly, because it grows from the bottom up. Okay. And so it's usually the right hemisphere that comes online first, followed by the left. So you take autism, for example, that is a right weak, left strong issue. So what's happened is that the left hasn't come online, so the right isn't coming online like it's supposed to, and the left grows, and that's why they're brilliant. But the right it's the stopping, it's the morals, right? So when if you look at, for example, an autistic kid, they'll have stims, they'll flap their arms, they'll have repetitive behavior, kind of like OCD. And what's happening is the right part of the brain hasn't come online to say, hey, stop, right? That's why also they tend to be rude or very, very straightforward. Okay. Because they don't have the ability, the morals built in. So they don't have the ability to know that that's rude or that they shouldn't be saying those things or they shouldn't be doing what they do.
So you have a background in this science, right? And studying these things. Yes. And you can imagine that there's been an uptick, right? I can imagine that there's been an uptick or an observance that there's been an uptick in the last several years of those types of. Yes. Do you call them disorders? Do you call them behaviors? What do you call them?
It's technical class is a disorder. Okay. But we call them just delays, developmental delays.
Developmental delays.
Yeah.
Okay.
The neurologist that we follow, that we've been working with, he called them functional disconnects, and he thought I created a new term. Turns out he didn't, but for a while he was.
There's a lot of those in society, right?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, I get it. So what made you interested in studying this type of science?
Wow. So me personally, when I was 11, I picked up a book called The Structure of Magic. Okay. And I thought I was a geek, admittedly. I thought it was about magic. It was about using your brain for a change. It was about neurolinguistic programming. So I started using that technology and studying people like Tony Robbins and people who actually knew not only how to use the brain but also self-development. And if you saw my library when I was a young boy, you'd go like, "Wow, did you actually read these?" At 11. Yeah. Okay. And so I started using it in the work that I did, and then I met my wife, and she. About 8 or 9 years ago, maybe a little bit shorter. She was a CrossFit coach, and she was actually working as a receptionist at CrossFit because it gave her the ability to go work out after, being there. And one of the clientele came in and said, "You need to come work for us." And she's like, "Okay." So she went and worked, and there was a center where they actually worked with these kids who have developmental delays. It was funny because about, a month and a half in, I go, "How much are you making?" She goes, "I don't know."
Wow.
Yeah, she loved it, and so she started following the neurologist who founded the company, and that's how we got into it. And so during COVID, she was working virtually, and our offices were back to back, so I could hear her talking to these kids, which was great because I got to hear all the success stories, and sometimes she would go, I don't know, I don't know if I can help this kid, and I said, honey, you always help the kids. And that's what I heard all the time is, Mom, did you see that? Like, she had a little boy who his entire goal was to be able to tie his shoes.
Okay.
That's all he wanted to do. Mom and Dad obviously wanted more from him. So towards, I guess it was 9 or 10 weeks into the program, she goes, okay, I think you can tie your shoes now. And he goes, I don't have shoes with ties.
Okay.
And so she turned to Dad, who was sitting right there, and said, do you have shoes with ties? And he goes, yeah, well, go get one. And he tied his shoe.
Wow.
Then Dad said, we're going to go get you some shoes with ties today.
Yeah.
Right. So I get to hear all these great things.
Yeah.
And so she came to me after doing this for a while, and she said, we need to open our own company. And I said, why? And she said, because what they're doing at this corporate level is not helping the kids as much as it could. I'm finding myself over and over going, you didn't hear this from me, but, right? And so I said, okay. So we founded NeuroFiT, and we've been just going great guns since.
Okay. Sounds like a great story.
Oh, I could tell you hundreds of stories.
Yeah. All right. We only have a few minutes.
I have one more if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Sure.
So we have this mom who, her son came to us with ADHD and dyslexia. And so he solved both problems, and then he's actually out of program, but he likes coming. So she works with him to read. And so Mom goes, well, we're going to put him in a private school. What accommodations does the school need to make for him? And she goes, when is he going? Starting in September. You're still helping him read, right? She goes, yeah. She goes, he doesn't need anything. Mom goes, okay, but what do we need the school to do? Nothing.
You're right.
He's reading. He's not fidgeting in school. He's doing great. She goes, but he's not there yet. Are you going to continue to work with him? Yes. He doesn't need anything else.
Do you, so those success stories that you're talking about, it seems like each individual student or kid or person that you're working with has their own level of measures of success.
Yes.
Yeah. So, just like from tying a shoe or being able to read by himself, how do you get introduced to your clients?
It's mostly referral.
Okay.
We've gone to a bunch of Rotary mostly and done talks for them, and we get quite a bit of response from Rotary. I'm in a networking group, so I get referrals from them. We have the website and the social media and all that, and we're seeing response, but we're not seeing the influx we were hoping.
Yeah, but as far as candidates, what's a perfect candidate for one of your clients, one of your kids?
Really, anybody who is struggling with social, emotional, behavioral, or academic issue.
Okay.
So if you find, for example, a kid that's struggling in school, we would test them and find out what's going on. We actually had a young lady come in who is struggling in school, but she doesn't have any of the road marks, the things that we'd look at, the red flags to say, hey, there's an issue. And so what we do is we said, okay, well, we know what's going on, and so you don't have to come in to see us because you're 18 now. But here's what we want you to do. We want you to give you a set of exercises. You do them. We'll do weekly check-ins, and then every month you come in and we'll reevaluate.
Since the pandemic, I know this has probably gone on longer, but since the pandemic, it's almost like an epidemic of kids who were exposed to the virtual world and just turned off, refused to do their homework, right?
Right.
I'm speaking from experience because I have one. Or will do their homework and not turn it in.
Right.
Know the material and just no motivation to just do it.
Right.
Is that something that you all help with?
Yeah.
What have been some of the reasons behind it?
Well, we were talking before about the establishment. So one of the things that we're seeing is and we're believing is that the number of vaccines that kids get is impacting them. In terms of ADHD and autism and all that, it's a lot of trauma. So, for example, if a kid was born from a C-section, that actually the body doesn't know that it should get rid of these retained primitive reflexes because it didn't. It's thinking I still have to go through the birth canal. I still have to do these things. If you walk into any restaurant, anywhere in the United States, and sit down and there's a kid in there, guaranteed that one or more is going to be sitting in front of a tablet. Because it's a lot easier for parents to go,
yes,
watch this,
yes,
while we're trying to eat and have a conversation.
Yes.
The devices tend to deplete the right brain, so that's causing issues.
So, moderation.
Yes.
Got it.
I mean, when you and I were growing up, I'm sure my mom said, "You're home from school, go outside and play." It's the street lights are not on yet.
So even when for me, I grew up in Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. Small town in the country. We didn't have streetlights out there.
Oh, wow.
So, and my little brother will tell you, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, we were just on our bikes. We were going to the farm down the street. Mm-hmm. We would ride our bikes 5 miles, and I'm not exaggerating, to town to go play or go to the library or go to the post office. We do some silly because there was nothing else to do. Picking up cans or recyclables on the side of the road, taking them to the food store to get money so we could eat that day. But nobody was checking behind us and doing anything. There was no phone calls. No. There was nobody at this destination that you had to check in with. And when you got home, you got home. I don't ever remember my mom or my dad saying you need to be home by 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or something like that. I never remember that. And I'm 7, 8, 9 years old doing that. Right. But yeah, we were outside until we got tired of being outside, and then you went inside. And
even for me, I'd get tired of being outside just when it started to get the sun started to set before the streetlights come on. I'd go in and they go, no, let's go outside. Streetlights are on.
Yeah, but I get it. I get your point. Yeah. So, how long have you been in the Raleigh area?
I've been here for 8 years.
8 years? Yeah. Where'd you come from?
Before this, I was in Michigan for 6 months.
What part?
I was in Lansing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I went there, it was snowing, and I left, it was snowing.
Got it.
So that was fun. Before that, I was in Florida.
Okay.
I was in Florida for 2 years.
Okay.
And then before that, I was in California.
All right.
And then before that, I was in Ohio, but that's a whole other story.
So you have a wealth of background as far as places that you've resided in for at least 30 days. Yeah. Right? So you've been around a number of places, and you're here in the Raleigh area.
Yes.
Why?
Because I love it. I mean, when we moved to Florida, I liked Florida. It was in Jacksonville. Okay. And I liked the big city, but the small town. And I loved that. But it was very hot. My wife was not happy that it was very hot because, you can only go outside like 3 days a year. Yeah. So when I went to Michigan, she came up, and my best friend lives in Michigan. But she came up to visit while I was there because I was on a contract, and she came up and she went, nope. So your choice is you leave me and stay here, or we find a new place. Yeah. And so I came to Raleigh because I got an offer to be here, and I loved it, and it has all the 4 seasons. It's a really great place.
All right. When you look at the landscape, you've been here long enough to see things change and development and growth and those types of things. What do you think Raleigh needs for small businesses?
That is a good question that I have not thought of. I would say that there's so much reliance on social media and the not touch, and I think that we need to, in a small business, to get out and be able to touch people and to be able to see them. So, one of the things that I'm doing for NeuroFiT is we're looking at, schools are a great resource, or we would think they would be. And so rather than relying on social media or referrals to get that, I'm actually sending letters to them. I can't handwrite them because I don't have that kind of time. But,
gotcha.
But I think that when you get a personal letter from somebody, it's like, wow, somebody takes the time to care about me. But for me, it feels like we don't have enough of the hands-on. I mean, I love being here and be able to talk to you, right, rather than being on a Zoom call or something like that. I think that Zoom and that type of medium is great, and then it allows us to touch more people.
It serves a purpose.
It serves a purpose, exactly. But this, I get to see you, and I get to see the expression on your face, like we get to chat like we're good friends.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping at the end of this we will be.
Hey, we will be, because I'm going to send you a lot of people. Because we know a lot of people who can benefit from such things.
Yes.
You know, we had a seminar late last year at my church where we brought in counselors from Cumberland County schools who were talking about this type of thing, where they're talking about kids just checking out and what we can do as parents to help them understand. And I remember them saying some things about traumas that they may have gone through or may have perceived themselves to have gone through, and just having difficulty dealing with those types of things and how to get past some of those things. But I don't know that there's necessarily a trauma to explain everything away.
No.
I don't know if it's a byproduct of all the technology in your face all the time. I think that's a huge contributing factor to, not paying attention.
Right.
Right.
I think it might be, that the propensity for kids, especially, to get sucked into that little device. I do a seminar every year for Rotary. It's actually called RILA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. But I do the tail end, and it's about finding out that you're not alone. Because as a kid, especially as a young teenager, just about to leave high school and going to college, you feel like the issues I'm going through are mine. Yeah,
nobody else has ever gone through this.
Yeah, and you talk to your kids and they're like, Dad, you don't understand. I was young once. Yeah. And so one of the things that we do it's called Culture Walk, where I present a bunch of different situations. And if you have experienced this or you know somebody who has, come on up here. And what happens is it starts out with are you a man or are you a woman, or do you identify as being a man or a woman? And then you start to see that the number of people who come up doesn't really change. It's usually half the group all the time. And so they realize, well, I know somebody who died in the military, or I know somebody who's been molested, or that type of thing. And so all the problems you think you have, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And so I think that as we're talking about with the devices, that kids get sucked into this to the point where it's very impersonal, but also I don't see everybody else around me.
Okay. When we're talking about Raleigh and your family being here, is this some place where you're going to stay for a long time? You can see yourself being here for a long time?
Yeah.
When you think about other people who are coming from different areas, whether it be California or Florida or Michigan, what would you tell them about this area that makes it special?
Wow. There's just about everything here.
Yeah.
Everything you'd want, from whether if you're a foodie or if you love art, or if you just want to get away and have a hotel, there's everything you'd want is here. There's a scavenger hunt. I think it's Let's Roam. And we did that with some friends a couple of years ago. And we got to tour all of downtown Raleigh.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Okay. All right. Where can people find information about NeuroFiT and you, Dr. Beck?
Well, me, I'm just a face on there.
Gotcha.
NeuroFitConnections.com is the best place.
Okay.
If you have Instagram or TikTok or any of those, you'll see Jackie on there. She's actually the coach. She does most of the work with kids because she's the a baby whisperer.
Oh yeah.
So another story. We had a little boy come in. Landon was his name, and he came in and he was 9 when he came in, but she said his brain age is about 18 months. And he came in, he had a big stuffed animal. He came in, sat down, went under the desk and sat down. And Jackie went down, sat with him and said, "So, what's going on?" And they just talked for the whole hour. And then the next time he came in, she did the exact same thing. And she goes, "Let's just play a game." And then over time, very short period of time, he was actually doing all the things he needed to do. But, I would have zero patience for that.
Yeah. It's like she has the key and she can unlock it.
Exactly.
And bring him out.
Exactly.
Okay. NeuroFit.com, NeuroFitConnections.com.
Yes.
If someone is at home watching or on the road watching this podcast and they're dealing with some of these issues, your advice to them as they start thinking about, hey, I need help for my kid, or I need help for this person, or I know somebody that needs help, what would you tell them?
Get an assessment. Even if you've been diagnosed, we're happy to give a second opinion. Because the truth is, when you go to a provider, whether it's an ABA therapist or your pediatrician or whatever, ask them what's going on in the brain of my kid. We can tell you. Most people can't. And I was actually talking to a pediatrician, family medicine doctor the other day, and he confirmed what I've always believed, and that is that pediatricians, especially and doctors, know that you should hit these milestones by this certain age. They just don't know what to do about it if you don't. They weren't ever trained. And again, we can tell you what's going on in the brain of your kid. So come in for an assessment. Right now it's free. We're planning on actually at the end of March, we'll start charging for it. But right now it's free. We'll tell you, we do 10 different things that we test during that assessment. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we'll tell you what's going on. What's going on in the brain of your kid and what you can do about it.
All right. Well, Tim, it's been a pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure being here.
On today. And folks at home, if you know of anyone that needs an assessment, needs some evaluations, I encourage you to come and speak with Dr. Tim Beck over at NeuroFitConnections.com. This is Real. This is Raleigh. Until next time.
Nice being here.